of the OUA Special Agenda, September 30th, 2019, at 10 a.m. At this time, would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, Ms. Anderson.
Present.
Mr. Clay. Mr. Kreisman.
Here.
Mr. Fadley. Mr. Moldenhauer.
Here.
Mr. Leonard.
Here.
Myself here. All right. Moving on to item agenda number 2, FDEP grant allocation.
Mr. Chairman and board members, I put at your place setting this morning just a brief notification from DEP that they did allocate $6 million towards Okeechobee Utility Authority projects. You will find, as in the last page, a breakout of all of the different projects that received funding, as well as the 4 projects. The only thing I would point out with you on the last table that you may want to notice under the Treasure Island project listing, they put in parentheses Southwest Sewer. Just a reminder that the last grant that we had received from Treasure Island, we redirected that towards the Southwest project, and that's probably why that notation is on there, as it was for the Southwest project. But if you look through the emails, they're very brief. They basically wanted something generated from the OUA as to how the monies were to be spent, whether that would be for one project or multiple projects, but some direction from the OUA as to how to spend or allocate those grant monies. In your board package, I basically laid out the 4 projects that were submitted to DEP, being Southwest, Treasure Island, Pine Ridge Park, and Okatani. With the Southwest project being the number 1 project for the OUA board up until this point for the allocation of the funds, followed by either Treasure Island or Pine Ridge Park, and then Okatani, with the understanding that the Southwest project is tied to Okatani also, in that it is the northern segment for that project. And certainly from the Southwest project, you already have an engineering firm working on the preliminary engineering report that is due back before the end of the year. So that being said, the only thing that DEP verbalized to me was that they would like to see these monies spent within a 2-year period. It's not a absolute, but it is something that they would like to see. And to that end, I've laid out the pricing for the different projects, and basically we need to reaffirm the Southwest project as being the project to spend the money on, or whichever way the board directs it to be going. What I need to do then is, per board direction, prepare the FDEP documents to go back to them, which is a work plan and some insurance requirements. And if there is any formal contract, then bring that back at the October meeting so that we can review it, accept it, and we're off to the races. So that's essentially the recap of where we're at. I can answer any other questions you might have.
Any questions from the board?
No questions, but I have a statement.
Yes, sir.
This board has never wavered on Southwest section being our first choice. We picked this a couple of years ago, and we've gone straight forward with it. the commitment so much as taking the $600,000 allocated for Treasure Island and moving it over, hiring an engineer, taking the surplus land sale revenue of $1.9 million and paying off that SRF loan where we could seek additional funding for the southwest section. So as far as my understanding, we've never wavered from this, and this is a blessing that we get this, and we should pursue, stay the course. It's what we've decided a while back. Let's stay with it.
Any comments from public?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Terry Burrows, I'm one of the county commissioners for the Board of County Commissioners. I had a conversation with the chairman on Friday when I was, or on Thursday, I think, when I was up in Panama City. I will say this, is that from our standpoint, from the board, we would encourage you to follow Mr. Creasman's suggestion. The issue that we have in front of us is that we have the job growth grant sitting out there that we've submitted, and hopefully that will help you on the latter portion of Okatani. This should help you on the front portion, but also inclusive of that, we're getting ready to do the Oak Lake Estates piece in terms of our stormwater drainage, and we would hope that you would continue with the southwest section and be able to put your pipes in there when we're digging that up one time and one time only, so that those people are not disrupted in terms of trying to get the sewer lines in there as when you start your southwest section work. Inclusive of that, just to kind of give you some ideas, that I was in a water policy or in policy committee meeting this week, and we were pushing forward with a Lake Okeechobee septic to sewer for physical constrained counties. And basically what we're asking for is a grant fund to be potentially taking money out of the Everglades Restoration Plan, potentially suggested $50 million, and put it into a grant fund by which physically constrained counties that surround Lake Okeechobee would have that opportunity to access. And that fund would be managed by DEP. Because a lot of times we're getting a lot of money put into these funds, and a lot of the urban counties, as we know, and a lot of other rural counties are trying to strive to improve their infrastructure due to the fact that we're continuing to get over 900 people per day into the state of Florida with an infrastructure issue that is looming in the corner that some people haven't identified yet that is being a major problem. But I will assure you that 67 commissioners out of 67 counties have identified that as being an issue, and we're trying to work toward that. So that was one of the reasons I felt that we're going to try to push forward with this Lake Okeechobee physically constrained septic sewer, and that would give you an opportunity to access additional funding in order to complete what Commissioner, or I say Mr. Creasman has articulated as his position. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments from anybody else in the audience? Okay. Well, I think that the board, as Mr. Creasman mentioned, is in 100% agreement to allocate the dollars as they were specifically allocated for. We need to have a motion, Tom, on that, okay?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we allocate the $6 million received from FDEP. Is that where it came from?
Yes, yes, sir.
FDEP, wholeheartedly to the southwest section. What's the name of that? What are we calling that now?
Southwest Wastewater Service Area Project.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I think this is going to be a great start for us over here. I feel that, in my own opinion, having been in that area and drove around for 3 days, the people out there need to have this done, and that this will open up the doors to some other better things for the community over here.
So, Mr. Chairman, what we'll do is staff will work through the DEP documentation, get that back to Tallahassee, and if there is some kind of contractual arrangement, I'll bring that back at the October meeting. I've already met with the engineer for this project, and we've developed a plan, if you will, as to how we could spend this money within the time frame requested by DEP, and we can bring that back also at the October meeting if the board was so choose to take that. It will probably require a minor modification to the scope of work and fee schedule that's already under contract. But again, with the found money and the new direction, it's a necessary deal, the step that we go through so that we can get them started sooner rather than later.
Be good. Moving on to item number 3, OUA rate adjustment.
Mr. Chairman and board members, at the last meeting, there was an issue brought up about the annual rate increases, if you will, that could be required to eliminate what we effectively have called deficit spending, if you will. There's a brief outline there in your board package where under our current rate revenues, we are able to meet our general operating expenses. But when we look at the total budget, including all of the capital expenditures, the annual revenue does not meet all of those requirements, so that we do draw monies from the Capital Improvements Project Fund as well as the Rate Stabilization Fund to help balance the budget. Again, this was something that was proposed back in May and June timeframe for the preliminary budget, that we were not doing a rate increase for our general expenses and that we were utilizing these funds. And when we go back and look at that, that is an issue that is out there, that to be complete, to have our revenues coming in to meet all of our expenses, there would be a regular increase that would be needed to meet those capital expenses. Likewise, with the consideration of doing the Southwest Wastewater Service Area, we know there will be some capital expenses, new capital expenses coming in. And so the question is it appropriate to go back and look at a minimal rate increase for capital expansion project and or projects? And if so, we would prepare that paperwork, bring it back, establish a public hearing at the next meeting, and we could address those issues at that time for a minimal rate increase.
Mr. Hayward, it was my understanding, if I remember correctly from Mr. Hamilton, Murray Hamilton, when he came in here, he said we needed to, we'd been so long without any kind of a rate increase, we needed to increase approximately 5%. If I remember the number correctly, this is going back a year and a half ago, but I thought we had decided we would do 3% last year and then 0.5% the next years in succession. It was a consensus of the board to do that until we reach that 5% number. Did I dream that somewhere, or is that part of, do you remember that?
No, you did not dream it. There was a discussion, and George can correct me here because this is in his neck of the woods, but the Murray Hamilton was looking at both our existing status quo as well as Treasure Island project, if you remember, or the Southwest project. There was some consensus that we were moving forward quicker with these projects than where we were at. And again, the board action that was taken was on the one-year basis, and the rest of it, there was no action taken on any future rate increases per se for capital payback, if you will. And so what the consensus was in May and June when we established the preliminary budget, it was only to meet those operating expenses. If there was direction needed, we would hope that could have been brought up over the May, June, July timeframe, so we could have incorporated those thought processes in before the final budget. Okay, we're at this point now. We could still do this public hearing to discuss this, Clearly, we spend a lot on the capital projects to continue the upkeep of the system. We're taking on another large capital project, so there will be rate increases. So the issue is to get ahead of the curve. Is that appropriate? And I think certainly from our perspective it is, but you will see that there is a proposal for Mr. Hamilton to come in and update that now based upon the actual $6 million coming in and the Southwest project and what that does to the impact long-term on our rates. Did you have anything you want to add to that?
Thank you, John. I didn't realize we did not earmark, we were going to come back every year and do it. It was just the one time. You answered it.
That's what the motion was, for a one-time deal, and that we would revisit it every year thereafter. We've been in this position before where we had automatic rate increases, and then that was removed from us doing that. So it was more or less on an annual basis going back and reestablishing those rate increases.
Every board member up here hates that phrase, rate increase. We've worked so hard to keep away from it, but the time has come, so.
We'll bear this out, Carl will bear this out, is that when we were on the original board members, that we tried to hold the rates, it didn't increase, and then all of a sudden when we had to slam the public. I would rather see us go up in small increments. I've looked around and I got a notice from West Palm Beach what their increases in their rates are. And in comparison, I mean, ours are very, very minute, but I don't want to get into the same situation that we were way back when we took a lot of heat. I think the public will understand that if we increase it in small increments, and I know that even 50 cents is a lot of money to a lot of folks out here in Okeechobee that are on fixed incomes and that can't afford, and with their paycheck or the Social Security, it's either pay the utility or I eat. But if we keep it low, I think we can accommodate everybody and not get into the same situation that we were last time. And that's why it's so important that we all work together with respect to getting all of those dollars out there, not only from Tallahassee, but from the federal people to get the grants to go back in and finish all the sections, especially Treasure Island, where we have a tremendous amount of people that will throw a lot of revenue into our system.
Well said.
Very hard. I mean, there's a lot of dollars out there. It's about the relationships that we make. Whether you like the congressman or senator, both at the state or federal level, you got to put that aside, and you got to go after those relationships. The dollars are out there. We had the meeting with the Corps of Army Engineer, and even they said, and Tom was there also, it's about the relationships. The mayor was there as well. If we can get to the governor and the governor get to the president, there are dollars there. It's not that easy, but we can't give up. You know, when somebody tells me no, that's the worst thing that you can do. All right, and I'll leave it at that. All right.
I talked to several people over in the Treasure Island area, and they think it's a great idea to put a sewer in to get rid of the septic tanks, but they are very reluctant to say, I'll spend $2,000 or $3,000 to hook up, get my septic tank taken out, and things like that. So not only do we need help with the OUA to be able to do this, we need to help those people over there so they can afford it, because a lot of them will not sign up for it, at least the people I talk to over there. So that's another option that we need to talk to our elected people about.
I agree. Moving on to item agenda.
Mr.
Wait,
Chairman.
We haven't
question.
addressed this item yet, have we?
Do you wish us to bring this back and set up a public hearing at the next meeting, or what's the direction?
I think bring it back.
Well,
I do too.
yeah, I'd like to hear what Murray has to say about the new changes that have gone on with the potential new 700 customers and capital expenses and things like that. Is there any way he can sharpen his pencil and then we meet?
Well, there is a proposal next for him to do the 5-year update on the financial, so that would be several months down the road that he would be able to respond to that question. If you want to wait till then, that's fine. I mean,
We could always amend till later, right? The budget's done and we can amend it. It'd have to be an amendment no matter what we did.
well, yes, sir. I mean, if we wait, then we have more current factual information as to where we need to go.
I'd feel more comfortable with that information than just throwing a dart at a board with a number on it right now.
Well, again, that dart would be based upon the previous study.
Sure.
I mean, so there is some factual information there. I don't suspect that the new updated forecast is going to be much different, but it will take into account the DEP grant monies, which should help lessen the impact. But that would be the case if we wish to wait till we get that answer.
Well, I'll yield to what my fellow board members want to do and agree with whatever they decide.
I don't want to assume anything. I mean, I don't have the facts. Exact facts.
Speak up.
I want to have the exact facts. And I don't like to assume anything whatsoever.
Wait several months till Murray's done?
Well, no, that's not any good either.
Well, wasn't this originally discussed prior, within the last year? We've talked about this, but we've never done anything about it.
Yes, ma'am, we talked about it, and there was the initial rate increase that we did, and the way it was left was there would be need for some future rate increases to be talked about and adopted in the future. So here we are to the next year. Based upon that previous work, is there a need for a rate increase? And I would still suggest to you that we are using rate stabilization fund monies and CIP monies to help balance the budget for those capital expenditures. So we are spending, based upon the capital project budget, more than we're bringing in. And that's what Murray was trying to address in his previous report, was that there could be rate increases for the capital expenditures, not the general revenue. And did you want to do it? Else otherwise, as the next agenda item is his 5-year forecast, the update, which will take into effect the correct project, Southwest project, along with the DEP monies. And we should have some formulation from the engineering, the preliminary engineering report, what the current actual construction price is, and we would incorporate all that in this 5-year update. So you would have the most current factual information to base any rate adjustment on.
Thank you.
So we really don't have enough information today to make any kind of decision on that.
That is correct. You don't have the current information. Yes, we do show that we're deficit spending. Yes, we did get a grant. Yes, we did move forward with the Southwest project. Again, the issue is if you want the most current factual information, I would suggest you wait till the study's done. Otherwise, is there a basis for a small increase? Yes, on the previous work. Yes, on the current budgetary expenses that we're showing in the FY20 budget. It certainly wouldn't. The budget is done. We're going to be operating on it as soon as October 1st gets here. Waiting 2, 3, 4 months for Murray's report is not going to change much. So if you want the most current factual information, I would suggest waiting till we get that report.
I agree. Do we need a motion?
No, just the direction. If we're going to wait, we're just going to wait.
Let's wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, you don't have to take action on this.
Right.
Moving on.
The only action would be if you were going to consider a rate increase earlier, before you got the information from your adjuster.
You're expert. Could we put this back on the agenda after Murray finishes his work?
I'm sure it will be on the agenda, yes, sir.
There we go.
I mean, I don't expect it to be without looking at that. I mean, I would expect that's going to be one of the conditions.
Moving on to item agenda number 4.
Board members, Chairman, this agenda item is a 5-year financial forecast. It's broken down into 2 phases: a base case study, which is what he done the last time, and phase 2, which would be incorporating the $6 million grant and the build out of the southwest section. So basically what's contemplated is 2 presentations. One, once the base case study is completed, that presentation would probably be December at the earliest, January at the latest, and then it'd be a couple more months after that till he would have the base case 5-year forecast done, including the southwest section. So the proposal is broken down into 2 scenarios here, and again, there's contemplated 2 presentations to the board, one with the base case done, and then a second one with the base case including the southwest section. Timing again is December or January for the base case, and then probably another 60 days after that for the base case including the southwest section.
Is there anything needed here? Do we need to execute that?
Yeah. You got a recommendation on that. The last paragraph down there is a recommendation. John, there are 2 things I'd like to suggest be changed in the contract itself. On pages D1 and D2. I look for this on representing a governmental entity. I'm very careful about indemnity provisions. They're asking the OUA to indemnify them. And I would like the second paragraph under indemnification on page D1, the following language to be added to that second paragraph. They're talking about the indemnity by the client. We're the client. After Article 1, which is the end of the paragraph, it ought to say, but only to the limit allowable by Florida law, as client does not waive its sovereign immunity. There's a limitation on the amount of the indemnity by statute, and that's the reason I'm suggesting that. The same thing needs to be at the end of the first paragraph called work product on page D2. Again, they're talking about indemnification. And again, at the end of that paragraph, there ought to be a comma after the word reuse and say, however, client's indemnity shall only be to the limit allowed by Florida law, as client does not waive its sovereign immunity. Those are the only 2 changes I see. I can give you that language.
If you will email that to me, specifically we can add that in and get it back to them.
So we need a motion to execute after the changes
Motion
are
to,
made?
yeah, subject to the changes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we execute this document after the changes have been made.
I have a motion by Mr. Kreisman.
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Down to agenda number 5, legislative delegation meeting.
Sorry. Mr. Chairman and board members, just as a reminder that this Thursday is the local delegation meeting. Back in the summer, July, You looked at most of these items that were presented as our talking points. So this is just basically here as a refresher that what we would be presenting, that Mr. Nelson would be presenting on behalf of the OUA this Thursday at the delegation meeting. But this is just as a reminder that that is coming up.
Do us proud, Steve. Do us proud.
Always do, always. Oh, I feel the flu coming on. At this time, are there any comments from the public?
Mr. Chairman and board members, I want to say thank you to you and your staff for being so progressive and going after these grants. And thank you for going to the southwest section, which we hope will couple up to the Okatani project. I know that my friends from Glades County see regularly what's starting to happen at corridor already, you know, without the sewer. And if we're lucky enough to get another grant and connect up to the package plant, which is one of the only ones that I'm aware of, it's inside the levee. So we need to be able to do that to cut back on the phosphorus. But again, thank you and your staff for everything you're doing. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Any comments from our attorney at this time?
I have a handout for you.
Uh-oh.
We were waiting. Christie's not done it, so I'm going to give you evaluation forms. It would be
Time
nice
again?
if they'd be back at the next meeting. I know that's wishful thinking, but
Take a couple of minutes out.
I've been checking my email once every month for it.
I decided I would bring them, and I will get Jeff's his, and I will get Tommy his.
I'm not checking John yet.
Me either.
And again, if you need any help filling those out, I'll be happy to help you.
Money talks, sir.
Checks in the mail.
You got to,
Received and filed.
Circular.
Okay.
that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any comments, anything from the current board members?
How about John? We're gonna.
Sorry, John, sorry.
How easy we forget. I actually got some other good news, hopefully. I haven't gotten it in writing yet, but we had a meeting with DOT, county and city, and OUA were represented at the DOT meeting concerning 710. And it is my understanding, through a verbal understanding of that meeting, was that DOT was going to be moving the alignment of the road further north, giving us a land buffer, if you will, between the southerly edge of the right-of-way and our wellheads.
Great.
So that's my understanding. I think Tom, if he has anything different from that meeting, but it seemed that they were very proactive and were able to move the road alignment to the north. Is that your understanding?
It was very encouraging. I was very pessimistic. I wasn't optimistic at all about the meeting. The attitude was excellent, cooperative effort. They're going to make there may be one small area where they can't move it as far on the extreme west side because of the alignment, the creek, but that only affects one well field. The other thing that was resolved there, the fact that our wells are located in the city, I wasn't aware of that. They're located in the city limits, so the city regs will apply as opposed to the county, which helps on that situation at our northwest corner. So it was a very, very good meeting. Very pleasantly surprised.
Again, it was a good meeting. The state, county, city delegation, along with the OUA, they all had a very positive input, and it turned out. Again, I've requested if they could provide that to us as a recap, meeting minutes, finalization, then we can move forward with some subordination clauses and the taking Corner Clip, if that's still going to happen on our parcel. We still have to resolve an easement issue down at the L63 canal, but I still feel favorable that we can do that. On another note, I did ask him about the roundabout on Southeast 18th Terrace at 441 Southeast. They were able to accommodate our construction concerns with our road crossings that we had to do, that we were planning to do by directional drill. Per the utility accommodation manual, they would have to be at 12 to 13 feet deep, which would be horrendous on our part because of the high groundwater table, narrow right-of-way, that our existing water mains at only being 4 feet deep, trying to bring this drill up by 10 feet, 9 to 10 feet would just be a horrendous undertaking, tearing up much of the shoulder right-of-way, trench boxes, dewatering. At any rate, in meeting with the DOT Bartow team, we had proposed that we move inside the construction zone for the roundabout work and do an open cut of the highway at night, one lane at a time, and then that would facilitate us bringing us up to a much more reasonable level. We would still have to do the restoration, the asphalt overlay, but the situation would be at the end of the construction project, it would be totally rebuilt by the contractors. So they were able to accommodate us there and move that inside the work zone, which I think would facilitate and certainly make the work better for us.
That's good.
They're still doing it, but at least it helps us on the amount of work effort and expenses to remove and replace these perfectly good water mains to get them out of their work zone.
We'll go back and talk them out of the roundabout now.
If I thought I could, I would, but I'm sure I can't. I did suggest to them if roundabouts, if traffic lights were so bad and a roundabout was necessary, they should have put it at the intersection of State Road 78, 441, and 98. But that didn't go very far, so onward. Progress.
Very good.
That's all my comments.
Anything from the members of the board?
I'm glad to be back.
Glad to have you back. Just missed you.
Just want to take a moment to thank everybody that went to Tallahassee and lobbied for us, and this was a wonderful thing. The $6 million was hard coming, but we're not going to let our guard down. We're going after more. There's other areas we need to address, but we can't do it without help. And the city, the county, everybody involved, thank you very much for assisting us in this.
Ditto.
If there's nothing further, I'm sorry the meeting ran so late, but meeting adjourned.
You ready to spend some money, Jeff?